Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this meeting of Transport at Portsmouth City Council in the Guildhall. I'm Gerald Van Jackson, I'm Cabinet Member for Transport, and I'll be chairing this meeting. Just in terms of housekeeping, no fire alarm is planned, so if it goes off, it's real. So please meet by the Queen Victoria statue in the Guildhall Square, and if you've signed in, can you sign out so people don't search for you? Microphones, if we could, please, for everybody wanting to speak, so that your words are recorded for posterity and for the world to see. Okay, we have an apology for Brian Madgwick, and young George is here to sub for him. But I don't think we have any other apologies, do we? Nope. Okay, let's go around and introduce yourselves. So, George, do you want to say who you are and what you're doing here?
Thank you. I'm Councillor George Madgwick of the Paulsgrove Ward, stand-in for Councillor Brian Madgwick, the opposition for Traffic and Transport.
Alison?
Alison Harper, Democratic Services.
Graham?
Councillor Graham Heaney, Labour Group Spokesman for Transport. Councillor Simon Bosher, Conservative Spokesman for Transport.
Anna?
Anna Court. I'm delivering a deputation on behalf of the Friends of Old Portsmouth Association Committee.
Bob Comley. I'm delivering a deputation on the subject of Peacock Lane.
I'm Bruce Hall. I'm General Manager of Aquacars and doing a deputation on bus lanes for Portsmouth.
I'm Kevin McKee. I'm the Senior Advisor on Parking Programmes.
Hi, Joanne Eldridge, Transport Delivery Lead.
Good afternoon, Michelle Love, Safer Travel Manager.
Felicity Tippery, Assistant Director for Transport.
Simon Bell, Principal Public Transport Officer.
Liam Norman, Project Manager for the PHVs and Bus Lane Trial.
Gareth James, Transport Strategy Team Leader for Portsmouth Council for Innovation and Pilot Projects.
Chris Gregory from Solent Transport.
Thank you. Michelle, is this your last meeting?
No, Felicity has put another one in, especially to be my last meeting.
I think we're doing these on a daily basis, are we not?
It was meant to be my last meeting, and now my last meeting will be the special for Canal Walk.
Excellent. All right. Well, we'll celebrate that. Okay, everybody. Thank you very much for being here. We've done apologies. Colleagues, any declarations of interest that we need to record? No. Okay. Portsmouth Micromobility Operation, Gareth.
Thank you very much. Yes, this report provides an update on the operation of the existing mental e-scooter trial and recommendation for continued participation in the extended trials, and also recommends moving to a sole operator model for shared micromobility. So there's 4 recommendations relating to that. I'll do them slightly out of order just because I think it will be more coherent. So 2.1 is to approve the renewal of the vehicle special order for Portsmouth's rental e-scooter trial until 31st of May 2026. That's in accordance with the DFT's new end date for its national trials. Recommendation 2.3 is to approve the council's Portsmouth City Council leading a Solent Transport procurement to select a sole micromobility operator for all the existing Solent schemes from summer 2024 onwards. And then coming back to recommendation 2.2, so to move towards that, it's to approve the extension of Voi's contract to operate the rental e-scooter scheme by 1 month. That's from its current expiration in May 2024 to June 2024, which would align its end date with that of Beryl's current operating contract for bike share. And finally, recommendation 2.4 is delegating authority to the Assistant Director of Economy, Planning and Transport to continue to implement the rental e-scooter trial within the parameters established by the VSO and the DFT until the 31st of May 2026, and in consultation with the Assistant Director for Procurement for Portsmouth City Council to award and enter into an operating contract with the highest scoring tenderer identified through Solent Transport's procurement. So in addition to that, I won't go through all the whole report.
Gareth, presume that we've read it.
Yeah, so I just want to highlight one or two of the reasons for recommendations, and then I'll move on to questions. So the schemes have enabled rental bikes and e-scooters to be introduced in Portsmouth in a controlled and safe manner, with ongoing continual improvements delivered by both operators, and they are evidencing their suitability as a popular addition to travel options for shorter journeys. I think it's important to note as well that this is 6.2, the e-scooter rental trial supports the ambitions of Portsmouth's adopted transport strategy, 2021 to 2038, particularly policy C. And then another point that I think is worth highlighting is 6.5, which is that not extending the rental e-scooter trial would mean that it's, the council and its residents would no longer experience the positive outcomes outlined in the report, while some negative outcomes would also be anticipated, notably an increase in car trips due to the reversal of the mode shift that has taken place. And also the illegal use of private scooters, which are not subject to the same design standards and control as the rental scheme, would continue even if the rental scheme were to end, and could potentially even increase if some of those who have come to rely on the rental scheme were to use a private e-scooter instead. And then the last reason for recommendation I want to highlight is 6.6, which is that bike share ridership in Portsmouth is below the levels required to sustain a commercially viable operation. So moving to a sole micromobility operator would provide flexibility and economies of scale for the supplier and improve opportunities for commercial viability in the medium term. So with that, I'll close and take any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Gareth. Can I ask, you'll know this better than me, when the government first announced that they were allowing this experiment, when was it meant to finish, and when have they now decided that the experiment will finish?
Yeah, sure. So they were originally scheduled to end on the 30th of November 2021. We've had subsequent extensions on 3 occasions, and they're now scheduled to end in summer 2026, and we understand that will be the final extension.
So that's 5 years more of an experiment. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Okay, Simon, do you want to go first?
By all means. I've got a few questions, if I can, Gareth. The recommendations 3 and 4, am I reading between the lines and that we could be going with an operator of scooters from 2024 onwards, the last 2 years, that may not be VOI?
Yeah, you're not reading between the lines, that's correct. It will be a mini competition between the operators on the framework, which includes VOI and Beryl.
Okay. Which sort
so
of
we will end up with one operator instead of the 2.
I totally understand the metrics behind the finances of wanting to do it that way. That makes sense. I guess part of my concern, and it sort of falls into 2.4 as well, where that beauty contest is going to be decided by officers and not members, if I'm reading this correctly, is that one of the positives from the VOI scheme is that we have a docked system. So those sorts of technicalities around what we have in Portsmouth, I personally would be reluctant to support something that moves away from things like a docked system. The model that we have here, despite the concerns around the use of scooters, if you sort of park that one, it works pretty well. And I wouldn't want to think that we might move to what might be a more inferior level which is somewhere else in the Solent region, and so therefore we end up with scooters dumped all over the city because we've got an undocked scheme. So I would think that members do need to be kept in the loop on what you're proposing in 3 and 4, because something that makes financial sense may not necessarily be the right fit for Portsmouth going forward. So I'd be looking for that assurance, probably through yourself, Gerald, to make sure that we do have sight of that and we have some input, because the way I read it now, it's going to be decided by officers and procurement, and we're going to have no say in it. It's just going to happen, and I'd like an assurance that that isn't going to be the case. I'll stop there.
Okay, so you want to change the recommendation. So recommendation 4 would be that it would come back to this body to take a recommendation about the procurement, but the decision to rest with us. Okay, Graham.
Surely the best way to do that would be to have it as part of the contract, that the contract says we have dock stations and that's what we do, and that's what I understand we have with Voy. So can we do the same?
Gareth?
Yeah, thank you. I think very good points. It's probably not lost on most of the people in this room that we're coming into the pre-election period, and so that informs the nature of that recommendation, with it being more greatly delegated. But of course, it would be in consultation with members, and I think the main reassurance that I can give to you, Councillor Bosher, is that the specification that's being drawn up is very much based on the feedback and indeed the evidence that we've seen around not just the docking of the scooters and bikes, but you know, all of the different aspects of the scheme. So all those parts that have been deemed to be successful, we want to obviously continue into the future. And so it's already written, you know, in black and white that in Portsmouth it would need to be a fully docked scheme for it to be awarded the tender. And there's all the other learnings that have come over the last several years with the e-scooters and the last year with the bike share have all been fed into the specification, so that we would make sure that we're not losing anything through this process.
Gareth, if we're worried about the pre-election period, we're allowed to have cabinet meetings on each day of the week and the weekends during the run-up to the election. There is nothing we can't do. I think they don't like us to do things that are contentious, but we are allowed to meet to make decisions on each and every day during the election period. So if that's the worry, that shouldn't feature. So I think we would very much want to be involved. So if we change the recommendation to be in consultation, but there is pre-election period is used by lawyers to try to stop us doing things, and lawyers are normally to be avoided. Simon.
I'm sort of on the same page. I perhaps looked at it from a different point of view than the PERDA period, in so much that this is a public record, and in 2 years' time, these recommendations essentially have excluded member involvement in it. So arguably, somebody in 2 years' time could sit there and say, well, there's nothing in the recommendations that says I have to involve members, so I haven't. I don't think that is ever going to happen, but it might be worth just having a 2.5 that says something along the lines, procurement process in consultation with the cabinet member and opposition spokesman, or something simplistic like that, just so we've got that audit trail going forward, because then reports would come back, even if they're noting reports, to this body, which will show that public audit trail for people to follow if they are really minded to read some of these reports online.
So, Simon, I was going to suggest in paragraph 2.4, in line 4, after the word procurement, we add in the words along with a cabinet member and opposition spokespeople for transport.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Gareth, are you all right with that? Fine. Graham.
Got some questions, yes. Yeah. I'm getting excited because the little red light doesn't go on here, so I have to watch that one, not that one. I have a broad question, which I have asked before. I think some clarification would be useful. Just a couple of weeks ago, the Parliamentary Advisory Council for Transport Safety carried out a study which basically said that the current data collection of accidents in relation to e-scooters is not as good as it could be. And I wanted to ask, are we confident that the data we have for Portsmouth in terms of accident recording is accurate, or are there any real gaps in it? That's the first question.
Gareth.
Yeah, again, a great question, and certainly Councillor Heaney will know that safety has been a key focus of the council and of Solent Transport in its monitoring and evaluation of the trials at the local level. Are we confident the data is accurate? We are. I think that we've had conversations with PACT, and a lot of their focus is around the national database called Stats19, which has some limitations. The database was never designed. It was designed before e-scooters were a thing. And so, to a large degree, data that's drawn from that is in a free text box because e-scooters are not a category. And then, even then, it becomes very difficult to distinguish between public and private e-scooters, and even sometimes mobility scooters and so forth can get conflated. However, the data that we rely on is from the operators. So we do kind of cross-check to make sure that they are not missing. And we've done exercises to make sure they're not missing data, but as kind of expected, they're over-reporting compared to the police data, because even the most minor of incidents that gets reported to them gets folded into the data that they share with us. And so what we've also done is an exercise, it's referred to in 3.22 of the report, and it's in Solent Transport's latest e-scooter fact sheet. It was a really good piece of work commissioned by TRL, the consultant that was working on Solent Transport's behalf, and it showed that in every single month for a 12-month period, the accident rate across the Solent was lower than it had been in the same month the previous year. So that accounts for differences in weather, traffic conditions and so forth. And I think that was really heartening to see. So there's certainly more work to be done at getting that level, that richness of data at the national level, and we're feeding into that process because a lot of regions haven't done that level of analysis. But I think it's, certainly for Portsmouth, very encouraging, and we'll continue to monitor that.
The other question I had was about the 3.13, the TRL survey. It talks about understanding public perceptions and having a survey carried out by them, presumably across the whole of the region that is doing these trials, ensuring a more representative mix of respondents. I mean, how are they intending to do that? Is this about age or other categories, social class, whatever? What's the basis of this survey going to be? What's going to make it more representative? Because I know we've had issues around people just writing in and saying what they think about it, and that's obviously data, but it isn't representative because it's whoever happens to choose to write it in. So I'm just wanting to know how the representativeness is being organised.
Yeah, thank you. That exercise has been led by Solent Transport, so I'll defer to Chris to respond to that, if I may, Chris.
Sure. So Solent Transport has commissioned a transport research consultancy called TRL to undertake a piece of representative sampling across the Solent. So that's across the Portsmouth, Southampton, and Isle of Wight scheme areas. What it's doing is looking at different demographics and reaching a proportion of those demographics to get their views on e-scooters. It's considering views from users and non-users, but it's likely to be more robust research than the perceptions surveys that have been undertaken by the two councils, because the majority of respondents to those surveys are non-users. So what we're looking at is a more balanced piece of research.
Two more questions. The other is about enforcement. I understand that Hampshire Police are likely to change their position in regard to enforcement of e-scooter riding. I mean, obviously, VOI is the rental one, is legal, but the one concern people have is the non-legal ones. Can you tell me whether that is right or not?
Yes, so I'm pleased to say that we have had some positive discussions with the local police contacts regarding this. I'm informed that in a matter of weeks they will be able to share some news around a change and essentially a transition to a more robust enforcement regime. In the past, it's just been on particular sort of target days where they've issued advice, warnings, and just make sure that people understand the law of the road. But I understand it will be moving to something a bit more akin to what we know other authorities have been doing, which can include seizing the vehicle. So I had hoped that we would have sort of more concrete information by the time of this meeting, but I believe it is only going to be a matter of weeks, not months. Thank you.
My last question is in relation to the DFT. Do we know if there is any substantive work going on within DFT about how a new legal system framework for e-scooters would work? So, for example, things around standards, safety, etc. Is any work on this being done at all, or are they waiting until the trial ends before they then start doing any preparatory work? Because I know there's been lots of commentary and there are various organisations making suggestions about what a new legal framework for e-scooters would be. And I'm just wondering, is any preparatory work going on, and do we know if it is going on?
Yes, so there is a lot of work going on at the office level of DFT. Myself and Chris and a couple of others met with the new DFT lead officers for micromobility only last week, and it was a sort of two-way conversation about some of the future research that could be carried out and so forth. Our understanding from that meeting is they are also still planning to run a consultation with the public in the not too distant future on what the regulatory framework around private e-scooters would look like. But I think it's fair to say that is going to be a matter of months, not weeks, until we hear more on that. But there is a lot of work going on there, so hopefully that will all come to fruition in whatever we do end up with as our long-term legal and regulatory framework for micromobility.
Gareth, I'm pleased that the police look as if they may change their mind, having had a deeply depressing meeting with the guy who's running the police in the city, and I asked them about enforcement, about people riding illegal scooters, and they said they wouldn't do anything. Other police forces have taken the view that they will confiscate illegal scooters, and that's what I asked them to do. I'm glad if they actually decide to change their mind and going to be doing that, but it'll be welcome when it happens, but it should have happened a long time ago. George.
Nothing much to add to this one, which you'll probably be happy to hear. I'm sure Brian would have said.
We'll move on then.
I'm so sure Brian would have said a few things, but no, I mean I've got no objections to anything that's here, in any way, shape or form. But I do agree with Simon, which you've put in the comments anyway, because I think that's important to have a member's say. But other than that, no, all good. And I'll thank Gareth, by the way, for being responsive in relation to the Paulsgrove inquiries for Voy, and I appreciate you taking our War colleagues' opinions on board when making your decisions. So thank you for that.
Okay, so with that change to recommendation for... Oh, sorry, Simon, beg your pardon.
I think we now know why Brian isn't here. He's probably at home filling out 5,000 TfL survey forms, I would imagine. I come back to my old chestnut, and that's the enforcement paragraph, Gareth, 3.18. I think it seems to be a question I seem to ask every time one of these reports actually comes along. What's the ratio between public reports about misuse of Voy scooters and Voy reports about misuse of Voy scooters? Because I get the impression that the public reports are probably minuscule for two reasons. Firstly, it's difficult to identify, I think, but probably more importantly is where the heck do you actually go to report misuse of a Voy scooter?
Yes, so I think you're right. The previous time we looked into this was a few months ago. As I think you'll recall, Roy did a kind of a backwards engineering exercise for us to get that split, because essentially by the time they are reporting them to us, they've all come into the same place. So they had to work backwards over, I think they did it over a 2-week period, and it was that the vast majority were still coming in through their own on-street staff. We did see a slight uptick in the number coming in from the public in response to us really, working with the comms teams and with members to try to get word out. It's compared to a lot of customer service these days, Voy are easy to contact, and they are responsive. They have their online web form, Report to Voy, which we always put the links to, but they also have the email address. They also have a phone number, which has very long hours of operation. So I think the main thing is just continuing to try to get the word out, on sort of brochures, through emails, and so forth. I know whenever I email residents back, I always make sure that they're aware, and I know that all of you do as well. And hopefully that will continue to get a slight increase. Yeah.
Can I make a suggestion, Gerald? Even though the operator is Voy and they run the whole scheme, and that's clearly where we're getting all the data from, the public perception is that it's a city council run scheme. So when I get complaints directed to me about badly ridden Voy scooters, I'm sure other councillors do, and I'm sure it comes into the city help desk and a variety of other things. We're going to be with this scheme, whether it's Voy or whoever, for another 3 years. Is there a possibility, because we have a lot of reporting things in the My Portsmouth app, which include things like near-miss data for cycling and whatever, is it possible to include something about reporting misuse of Voy e-scooters on our app? And then we've got some collaborative data that we can actually use to be able to identify.
Because I'm pretty sure you could just do a link. That if you tap that on the My Portsmouth one, it just takes you directly to the Voy report it, and so there's no need to report it twice. It should be possible to do. Gareth, you're younger than me, you'll now tell me I'm wrong.
No, I think we can look into these things. We've certainly, through City Help Desk and others, we do sometimes get those inquiries or complaints in, and we make sure that they are all fed in, so they come out in the same data as well as being responded to. But that's something that I can take away to look at. If there are apps or portals that are currently, council ones that are well used, and it isn't easy or it isn't intuitive to be able to report a void that way, we can look at that. And of course, this is a good juncture at which to do it when we will know soon who will be providing for the next couple of years. It's often harder if it's only a few months, because it's a lot of sort of engineering work goes into these systems, and then it could be for nothing. But this is a good time to do that, so we'll take that away.
Okay, so there's a change to recommendation 4, line 4, Alison, after the word procurement, to add in and the cabinet member and opposition spokespeople. Okay, all right, I think everybody's happy with that, so thanks very much indeed for that. Okay, item 4, traffic regulation order, various, Alison. And I don't know if your mic was working, try it again.
Hopefully that's okay.
Yeah, yes, now it's working, great.
We have 2 proposals within this report. A 10-metre length of no waiting at any time, double yellow lines are proposed in Senham Place, adjacent to number 36. This is to improve sight lines for opposing traffic and to reduce the risk of conflict with pedestrians and cyclists utilising the footway in the vicinity. The second proposal is to reduce the parking bay outside number 8 Pepys Close to accommodate a dropped curb and parking facility created by the resident. The off-street parking accommodates at least 2 vehicles, and it is proposed to only remove permit parking for 1 vehicle.
Okay, let's go in the opposite direction. George, any thoughts?
Yeah, 100% on this one. This is really welcome for for Senham Place. It's been a problem that the residents have reported a number of times, and it's ironic that even when you go on Google Maps, the Google Maps show the commercial vehicles parked directly in the space. It is 100% a health and safety issue. I'm aware personally of at least one incident involving a cyclist. So yeah, it's a welcome addition to Port Solent. I think it's overwhelmingly supported by a majority of residents, and I think it would be a good decision. I don't obviously have an opinion on the other one.
Graham?
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously a local ward matter. I'm very happy if the ward councillors are happy and you're happy to go ahead.
Simon?
What Graham said.
Excellent. Okay, sold. Thank you very much indeed. So I've checked with Susie, and Susie says the one in Pepys Close is a good thing to do as well, and I do what Susie tells me. Okay, moving on. PHVs in bus lanes. We have 2 deputations on this. So we have a written deputation from the Cycle Forum, which is part of a wider deputation which also includes Old Portsmouth. And then there is, we have Bruce from Aqua who wants to come and speak. So if we do the introduction first, Bruce, and then come to you, is that okay? Liam?
Thank you. So this report is being brought to provide an update on the trial permitting private hire vehicles to use 5 bus lanes in Portsmouth. These 5 bus lanes were Cavell Drive, Queen Street, Mile End Road, Market Way and Bishop Crispian Way. This was approved by the then Traffic and Transportation Cabinet member on the 5th of July and was implemented on the 14th of November, both 2022. There are 3 recommendations within this report. The first being that it is approved making permanent the provisions of the Portsmouth City Council various roads, bus gates and bus lanes number 184 experimental traffic regulation order, permitting continued use by private hire vehicles of the 5 bus lanes that were part of this trial. The second recommendation is the approval of commissioning independent road safety audits to assess the implications of Portsmouth City Council licensed private hire vehicles being permitted to utilise a further 22 bus lanes, as specified within Section 8 of the report, and to determine the necessary mitigation measures and implementation costs. The final recommendation is that it is approved that ongoing monitoring of road safety and air quality data for the 5 bus lanes that were included in the trial to help inform any future plans to permit Portsmouth City Council licensed private hire vehicles to utilise more bus lanes. In terms of the trial to date, we've been collecting a range of data relating to journey times, air quality, contraventions and road traffic incidents. It has been noted that there's not any real positive or negative impacts that are able to be directly attributed to the trial. We have seen some potential changes with air quality, although we can't confirm that at the moment because we need to collect more data. We ideally need a minimum of 3 years to really draw any conclusions on air quality data. The reasons for the recommendations within this report are that following the trial we haven't really seen any sort of positive or negative impact, so we want to run the road safety audits to look at the additional bus lanes and consider them. Thank you.
Thanks, Liam. Okay, Bruce.
Well, good afternoon. The trial has taken a long time to come about. It finally came about in November 22. I don't think we've had any complaints from the public reference to bus lanes. The only issue I do have on it is the 5 is perfect, but the one that gets all of our drivers is the one at Commercial Road. Because you come off the top of Mile End Road, you're going south, you go past All Saints Church, and that they're not allowed to use. So it causes us, you know, the drivers, quite a lot of aggravation because they're coming out of All Saints Road, coming out by the church, and when they turn left, they have to get across into the other lane. That does cause quite a few problems. But our drivers have not moaned about it. I don't think they've caused any issues at all. I think we're moving around the city in that particular area, in the clean air zone especially, a lot better, and I would like to see the trial go ahead and the considerations of the other access roads not take so long as this trial to be put into place has taken. Thank you.
So, colleagues, there is also a deputation from the Cycle Forum. Colleagues, have you got copies of that? George? Yeah, okay. Bruce, going back to your point, I think commercial road is on the list of ones in the next phase, so that we're looking, and Liam and Gareth are getting on and getting the road traffic, the safety audits done quickly, so that we can come back here when we've got that information to make final decisions. But it's not right for us to make a decision without a safety audit, so that's why we're doing it. But I hope the intention here is clear in terms of which way we're going with this.
Yes, it is, and I thank you for bringing it up and keeping it in the public eye.
Good. Okay, so Graham, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, but I want to ask about the future sites, actually. Just a quick question about Tangier Road. It's not right where I live, but it's close to where I live, and I use that junction, you know, fairly regularly. Currently, buses are able to turn right to go to an Eastern Road. I'm presuming it would therefore potentially allow PHVs to do that as well.
So at the moment, the recommendations to carry out the road safety audit will then get information back from the auditor about the sort of current use and layout and what we're planning to do. Until we really have those road safety audits, I don't think we're in a position to say what the restrictions will be on using those bus lanes, but we would consider that and make sure that that's brought back within the next report. So at the moment, it's gathering as much information as we can and undertaking the desktop study that's highlighted in section 8 of this report, and we'll be able to answer specifics then.
It was sort of a question because actually I saw a vehicle using that wasn't a bus, and I wondered if we do have that, there will be potentially a camera there, because the other problem is once a PHV does it, other drivers might think they can use it as well. So it's about whether we can enforce preventing other people do that, because there doesn't appear to be a camera there at the moment to stop that. So I did, for the first time, I have to say, we see a driver using that when maybe they shouldn't do. So it's something to maybe watch out for.
Anything else, Graham?
I mean, in terms of the report, I mean, it's pretty thorough. I mean, I have read the deputation, and interestingly, the deputation basically says there's no way that there's been any improvement to PHV vehicles, but we weren't testing, but we were testing the safety issues of the use of the cycle lane. So, in a sense, that's sort of testing a negative. You know, we haven't got the data on that one. So I don't think we have got any. I don't know whether we have any anecdotal evidence from the trade about whether they feel it's really made a difference or not in terms of the way they operate. But that might be useful to gather, possibly, if they have any information around that to help the future evidence. But I don't think I have any questions. I mean, I've watched this through. I think it's a very thorough report. So yeah, happy to go forward.
Thanks, Simon.
Very much similar to me. It's interesting. We're looking to expand, and we're considering some of the other ones. I think that was always the intention going forward, which is why we started with a few to take this forward. I've sort of kept a bit of a loose eye on things, and I can't see any issues. I noticed what the Cycle Forum said. They seem to be hanging their hat on no improvement in air quality. Well, my argument is most of these vehicles are actually probably already in the centre anyway, so it's not adding extra traffic and having any damage there. But I'm broadly supportive of the recommendations, and let's see how we keep going with this.
George?
I couldn't support the recommendations more, to be fair, and I think that anything we can do to support our private hire vehicles in the city should be commended and supported in any way, shape and form, especially bearing in mind all the concessions we give the bus service. So if this helps the licensed trades, then I'm 100% all for it, and I agree with Bruce that it should be done as a matter of speed and timely manner rather than the delay that we had last time. So yeah, fully in support of it.
I hope it is of some use. Bruce, when we've been talking about in terms of public transport, I've been making clear to Felicity, and I think it's been taken on board, that taxis and private hire vehicles are public transport, because that's what they are. But when we're considering strategies about public transport, we include them. I think one of the things in this is that this concession is only available to PHVs that are licensed in Portsmouth. We need to give people an incentive to license here in Portsmouth and not in Wolverhampton, because our standards are higher, and that protects members of the public. And therefore, if we can make concessions, we need to do things to incentivise people to license here, because that's good for safety of residents here in Portsmouth, and actually good for safety of the of drivers as well. Okay, colleagues, I think everybody's happy with this, so thanks very much indeed. That's fine. Let's proceed with that. Thank you very much indeed, Liam. Now, the contentious one, Beverston Road, one-way street. Tracy.
I'm presenting on behalf of Tracy.
Michelle, I'm sorry. A meeting without you would be strange.
It would be pointless, obviously.
Indeed.
Thank you, Councillor Vernon-Jackson. So the report is for Beverston Road one-way TRO consultation. The purpose of the report is to consider the implementation of the proposed one-way street within Beverston Road, Paulsgrove, as outlined in Appendix A of the report. The recommendation that we're bringing forward is that the Cabinet Member for Transport approves the implementation of TRO 115/2023. The background, there was informal consultation was carried out with the residents of Beverston Road. Originally, this was coupled with another requested scheme, which was Bromyard Crescent one way, but the results of the consultation showed that actually there was not a majority to enable that scheme to be taken forward. The Beverston Road from the 29% of the 68 consultation letters that were sent out showed strong support, so the scheme continued. The TRO was advertised. There was one objection from Hampshire Constabulary concerning the fact that speeds would increase due to no oncoming traffic and the potential for cyclists to ride against the one-way and the increased journey time. The outcome of that was that we'd carried out traffic surveys. We will continue to monitor the completed works and carry out a further traffic speed survey after the scheme has been implemented for 6 months. And obviously, if there is an increase in speeds above the enforceable limit, then we will look to take this forward for further traffic calming. Once that detail had been shared with Hampshire Constabulary, then they were happy to say that they were not putting forward an objection to the traffic regulation order. The reasons for recommendations are that councillors reported residents had raised concerns regarding the existing road layout and felt that a one-way working would assist with the removal of confrontation between conflicting vehicles due to the narrowness of the existing carriageway. The residents' consultation showed that the majority of residents were in favour of the one-way street, and this is outlined in the TRO report. That's an overview, but I'm very happy to take questions.
Thank you. I suppose I was going to go in order, but we should come to George first. It's your ward.
Finally, we are here, Councillor Vernon-Jackson. I think
We have been here for a long time.
We have indeed, yes. To say this is one of the first things I did when I became a councillor with Councillor Hooper and Councillor New from the Conservative group. That shows you how long ago this has been. This has been sitting on a pile somewhere. But I understand that the department's had a number of issues to overcome and problems to get this to the point here. You know, I think it's pertinent to note that there is an overwhelming majority of support. 95% of people that responded were in support of it. I hope we've sorted out the issues with the paddock owners now, and hopefully the Cabinet Member can approve this.
And Michelle, if we say yes to this, the signs will be up tomorrow?
No. They can't fire me now, so... Yes, Councillor Madgwick, I do recognise that this has obviously been an ongoing scheme. A pandemic, staffing shortages, etc., have contributed. I think hopefully the officers have continued to work well and to continue to keep you informed of the scheme. The paddock owners, we certainly had some challenging conversations with them, but the outcome has been that they are in agreement. And obviously, although the signs will not be up tomorrow, if this is approved by the Cabinet member today, then we will work to implement it as soon as possible.
Okay. Simon?
George is right. I mean, when I was doing traffic and transportation in a previous guise, this is one that Gemma and Joe were banging on about left, right and centre. George has picked up that baton, and no doubt Brian and Chris have as well, basically. So it does seem to have been a long time in the making. Essentially, from my point of view, it is a ward-related issue. I know there's obviously safety aspects that need to be considered, but with overwhelming public support and the ward councillors past and present in support, my view is pass it, Gerald.
Graham?
I agree with Simon.
Excellent. Well, and when dinosaurs roamed the earth. Okay, folks, everybody's in agreement with this. Thanks so much indeed. Okay, item 7, concessionary fares. Simon?
Thank you. Yeah, this is the regular report we bring forward every year in terms of the reimbursement to bus operators for accepting concessionary bus passes issued by the authority and other authorities. The recommendations that the Cabinet member notes the contents of this report, approves that the bus operator reimbursement rate continues using the actual journeys made with the concessionary bus pass from the 1st of April 2024 using the revised guidance from the DFT. That the council will use medium urban discount fare factor to reimburse bus operators, and it approves any unallocated concessionary fare budget be used to meet the cost of supporting non-commercial bus services during 24-25 following the DFT guidance, and approves making the free travel to hospital appointments permanent feature of the scheme, which was introduced 18 months ago, delegates authority to the Cabinet Member of Transport in conjunction with the Assistant Director of Economy, Transport and Planning and Transport and the Section 151 officer to make any necessary changes within the allocated budget. The one part of the report I will pick up is concerning the details of the fare discount factor, and that's the big change within the DFT guidance in terms of what factor the authority should use. And Appendix A does list the full details of all the 4 categories, and it's quite clear that Portsmouth falls within the medium urban category, and that's what we're proposing that the authority will use from the 1st of April. And I'll take any questions.
Okay, thanks very much, Simon. Simon?
It's essentially a noting report, Gerald. It's the sort of thing that we've had before Cabinet members in the past. Usually just sails straight through, to be quite honest. Totally happy with it.
Okay, Graham?
Yeah, I don't have any questions. I did ask something about the subsidy arrangements, but that's fine. I understand that now. I'm obviously pleased to see that we've decided to make the hospital appointments journeys permanent, which is good. So that's good. So yeah, I'm very happy.
George?
Nothing to add.
Okay. I'm particularly, well, I'm pleased with 2 things. That being the mixed urban thing, I think that's the best financial position for the City Council, and that's a good thing. And thank you very much indeed, Simon, for the work you've done on that. As I'm spending a lot of time at the moment at QA, I am noticing how incredibly expensive it is to park at the hospital. So offering free travel to get to hospital appointments so that people don't have to park and don't have to take their car, but also so that people can get to hospital appointments, I think is a really important thing, and I'm really pleased that we're doing it. I think it's clear that we are doing something very different with buses in this city. Hampshire, I think, are cutting 58 different bus routes as part of their budget consultation. And we're going back, we're having night buses now for the first time for years. We're going to be, I am now too old to use night buses after going clubbing, but I'm sure Liam, etc., will be using them on a frequent basis. But also extending evening buses on the 13 and the 14 and at the weekends, I think is really good news for the city. So this is all part of the way in the buses. We've got a really positive bus revolution happening in Portsmouth, and it's really good to see this extend to this. So thanks very much indeed, Simon. Okay, now we're now on to Old Portsmouth, and I'm slightly worried that I don't see Chai.
I'm Chai.
Okay. Chai's changed a little bit.
Chai sends his apologies. He's unfortunately not able to make it, so I will be presenting the report on his behalf. Here's watching.
Excellent. Hello, Chai. Now, I think if we can do, Michelle, your presentation first, because I think what you say, particularly about Peacock Lane, may have an effect upon what our colleagues here wanting to do deputations may then say. So we're hanging on your every word, as always.
As it should be. Okay, so bear with me 1 second. Let me get up the latest information to include within the report. Okay, thank you, Councillor Vernon-Jackson. So the actual purpose of the report is to consider the objections to Traffic Regulation Order 298/2023, which is the Old Portsmouth waiting restrictions. The recommendations attached to the report are that the Cabinet Member for Transport considers the objections to the Traffic Regulation Order for the Portsmouth City Council, Old Portsmouth waiting restrictions, Traffic Regulation Order 2023 and public notices, proposed Rose Hump, High Street, Old Portsmouth and Broad Street bus stop removal. Approves the provisions of Portsmouth City Council Old Portsmouth waiting restrictions, approves the public notices, and notes that Peacock Lane raised table is under investigation due to drainage requirements and that this information will be brought, and it says within the report, to a future meeting if a verbal update is not available. That verbal update is now available, so I will be providing that as part of the report feedback. So the reason for the recommendations are there was an informal and formal consultation as coming out of the Old Portsmouth area study that came to Traffic and Transportation Committee at the end of last year. And so informal consultation was carried out with the residents, and the Traffic Regulation Order is obviously the formal consultation. And following that informal consultation, a design was put together. That design included a crossing point on High Street, crossing point on Broad Street. Oh, sorry, changes have been made to, proposed Broad Street raised table on Feltham Row, and the crossing point in High Street. So new pedestrian crossing facilities. Okay, let me scroll down. So the objections to the order, which obviously the members of the public will make deputations for and against once I've finished, I will leave those details to them. The update for Peacock Lane is that following the radar survey, which looks at underground utilities, we have now decided that it would not be in the best interest to continue with the Peacock Lane raised table. The reasons for that is that there was an inherited design assumption that there would be sufficient water runoff. However, once we undertook detailed surveys, the land is almost flat, and there would be many places where ponding would be created, so we would create a risk as opposed to mitigating against a risk. Another reason was that when the radar survey was carried out on the actual road width, it was shown to be 0.45 metres less than the Ordnance Survey mapping, which is what our software runs on, which means that the tracking, it would become more congested, because the tracking measurements that we had that showed that it would work, when actually on site, it would be more congested. The alternative would be obviously to install new drainage. It would also be to divert some of the underground utilities. The gas main is currently shallower than we would expect it to be at 150 mil. So we would need to arrange to have those diverted, which would add on additional cost. So the recommendation for the moment is to remove that from this scheme. You can, of course, make the decision that you would still like to progress with this at a later date, and we would then put that through our feasibility process. But for the time being, the recommendation is that it's removed completely out of the programme. The report, going back to the report, the Broad Street and Feltham Road crossing, we haven't received any objections on that, and the High Street crossing, there was additional responses to ask for that to become a raised table zebra crossing as opposed to a flat zebra crossing, and following the consultation responses, that has been included into the design. That is really the overview of the report, and obviously with the additional Peacock Lane information. I'm happy to take questions after the deputations if you think that would be appropriate.
Okay, so we've got deputations. Shall we start with Anna?
Okay. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anna Corr, and I'm representing the Friends of Old Portsmouth Association Committee, which is a body elected by a community association in Old Portsmouth, comprising 261 individuals in 174 households. FUPA strongly supports the proposals for a pedestrian crossing and raised table across High Street. FUPA has been campaigning for many years for better road safety in Old Portsmouth. The Old Portsmouth Area Traffic Study came about as a result of a FUPA request for a comprehensive and systematic review of the traffic issues in this part of the city, with a need to improve road safety, reduce congestion and air pollution, and encourage public transport and active travel. Despite the prolonged gestation period of the study over 6 years, which commenced in July 15, I don't know if that competes with some of the historic stories we've had with other elements on the timetable today, but Councillor Bosher may remember coming to some of the early meetings in the Duke of Buckingham pub, where we discussed some of the issues. And the report that Michelle refers to, that was delivered in November 2021. We are extremely pleased that one of the key recommendations for more pedestrian crossings is to be implemented. Sadly, it has come later than needed. As long ago as May 2015, FUPA raised those concerns about speeding in High Street and the risk it posed to pedestrians and vulnerable road users, such as those with disabilities or mobility issues, the elderly, and children walking to and from St Jude's Primary School and the Grammar School. The principal case made was for a zebra crossing across High Street between Highbury Street and Peacock Lane. As engagement developed between FUPA and PCC, FUPA brought PCC's attention to detailed technical and analytical points concerning the limitations of the methods used by PCC to evaluate the problem of speeding and the need for crossings. We persisted, and gradually we were able to demonstrate the robustness of our approach. Early on the morning of the 17th of January 2022, an elderly resident, Hildegard Lowe, was killed by a suspected hit-and-run driver only a few metres from the planned site of the zebra crossing in High Street. In her death, Hildegard demonstrated posthumously the need for this zebra crossing, but it shouldn't have been like that. The Royal Society for the Prevention of Accidents has calculated that each road fatality has an equivalent financial cost of over £2 million, in addition to the human cost of personal pain, grief and suffering. It is worth reflecting on how much police, emergency services, NHS and councillor officer time was spent reacting to this fatality, and compare this to the cost of these proposed works. For decades, residents have been plagued by speeding. Analysis of PCC's own data in the last reliable, detailed and repeatable survey in Old Portsmouth in November 2018 showed that nearly 6 in 7 drivers exceeded the speed limit, almost half exceeded the police discretionary enforcement threshold of 24 miles per hour, and on average, each day, 129 drivers exceeded 36 miles an hour, with speeds of over 50 miles an hour being recorded. These drivers would be liable for a court summons if only there was police enforcement. We thank PCC for the plans for a zebra crossing with raised table. Evidence demonstrates that the most effective way of curbing driver law breaking is traffic calming. Combining a zebra crossing with a raised table will be an effective physical deterrent to speeding drivers. It will reassign priority to pedestrians, a measure which is supported both in the Highway Code and in Portsmouth's local transport plan. It should be highly effective and make a rapid transformation to road safety, with the additional advantages of reducing traffic noise and encouraging more walking, which is most timely as the St Jude's School Streets initiative commences next month. We also strongly support the plan for a raised table in Broad Street. Councillors are aware of the concerns of Spice Island residents about speeding, especially the late night boy races. This feature will curtail speeding, reduce road dangers to pedestrians, reduce noise, and will be an engineering feature that will be in keeping with the historic environment. It's also important to allay any concerns about perceived detriment to driving. Department for Transport data shows that taken over the last 10 years, the average increase in the number of motor vehicles registered to addresses in Portsmouth increased by 2,190 every single year. Portsea Island is not getting any bigger. The removal of 4 parking spaces for the Broad Street scheme is necessary to improve road safety for pedestrians and vulnerable road users, and so supports the wider objectives of the local transport plan. We look forward to the publication of PCC's forthcoming strategy that will need to provide measures to reduce parking demand. Just as an aside, the report on paragraph 7.4 states that residents raised several themes of concern to engagement officers. These related to issues with perceived speeding on High Street and a desire for a raised table, although this was not substantiated through speed survey data collection from the road safety team. FUPA understands that this speed survey data collection refers to the speed survey conducted in May 2021, and that survey was in a different location to previous surveys conducted in High Street, north of the crossroads. It is therefore not surprising that it did not confirm residents' views and experiences, because this particular survey was south of the crossroads, so counted far fewer vehicles. Being at a junction, it recorded slowed or stopped vehicles waiting to turn, which lowered then the average speed.
Anna, have you nearly at the end?
Coming up.
Brilliant.
It omitted the DFT guidance that speed surveys should be done in free flow conditions, i.e. excluding periods of increased congestion, such as daily rush hours and school drop-off pick-up times. If FUPA has undertaken to provide to PCC the detailed technical notes on the ways that its methods for assessing speeding and the need for pedestrian crossings can be improved. In conclusion, FUPA strongly welcomes these plans, which will make immediate and major improvements to road safety and sustainable transport. Thank you.
Thank you. Having heard Mr. Connolly from Michelle, do you want to do your deputation? Or?
Thank you, Chair. If I may just make a very brief comment, and that is to thank Mr. Sharp for the interaction by email over the last few weeks. which has been beneficial, I think, to us both. Since Peacock Lane has now been removed from scope, you'll find that my written deputation refers to my perception of safety hazards there. They still stand. But I'm very, very happy that the raised table has been put under the High Street crossing, because I think that is extremely beneficial.
Thank you. Ms Morris, do you want to, I know we have something written from you, do you want to add anything, or are you happy?
Nothing. Thank you very much, Chair.
My pleasure. Okay, thanks. We have lost Councillor George Madgwick. So, Graham, shall we come to you first?
Well, a lot of comprehensive work's been done on this. I'm assuming the local ward councillors are satisfied with the response, so I think the decision is yours, and if it's would go with the recommendations, that's fine.
The local ward councillors are very happy, but want it to move considerably quicker.
Oh, right.
I think would be an underestimation of their view about the speed.
But the decision, not the view.
No, they're wanting it done quick.
Yeah.
But yes, but they're very happy with the suggestion, and they were very supportive of there being raised tables in both places, because everybody knows people hoof up the high street at considerable speed, whatever the data might say. Simon.
I just wondered before I made a comment, Chair, whether you were going to ask Michelle to comment on some of the issues that were raised by the first deputation at all.
So we've had Michelle and I have had the pleasure of a meeting with FUPA, and particularly Mike Dobson, to go through his view of technical stuff, and I'm leaving Michelle and Mike to have that discussion between them. May that be an interesting and fun conversation. And Michelle, anything else you'd like to add?
I can give you an overview of the discussions that we've had if you need them.
I think we're here to make a decision about the raised tables, so
Yeah.
I think an overview of that may be unnecessary at this point.
Yeah, the speeding, obviously there is differing opinions, I think it's fair to say, and there are differing suggestions from Hampshire Constabulary and from FUPA as to which method of speed collection and data we should use. As we explained to the FUPA representatives when we met them, we will continue to go with the method of speed data and evaluation that's commonly used across other local authorities and other constabularies. However, we do obviously have listened to their opinions and gone through the evidence that they've presented. The raised tables will have absolutely the added benefit of reducing the speed along the road, but as well as being obviously key pedestrian crossing points in an area that has a lot of visitors and residents, and they are now able to use that engineering infrastructure.
And my hope is that if people do mistreat High Street and Broad Street and continue to go at significant speed, that the raised tables will do damage to their cars, and that will teach them a lesson.
Yes,
although I'm probably not allowed to say
that could be an
that.
outcome. We're not publicising that as an outcome, but yes, if they do go above the enforcement limit, then obviously there are raised tables that could damage low-lying vehicles. We just recommend them not to do that in the first place at all.
Absolutely. People should stick to the speed limit. Okay, Simon?
Yeah, I'm probably old enough to remember the Dukes of Hazzard and what happens when you do that sort of thing, but yeah. It's very much a local issue. It would have been nice to have had any one of the ward councillors here to give their views, but obviously they haven't and they can't for whatever reason. It's very much your decision, Chairman. It's a local issue, and I'm not going to pretend to interfere in something which is clearly exercised in the local community.
Yeah, and it's one of the problems when we have councillors who work full-time out of the city.
I work full-time as
well. You do? But you are here as a spokesman on all of these things, not just on one item. But they have made it very clear to me in meetings that they are very keen that this should happen and happen very quickly. So I'm happy to transmit their view. So very happy to support this and make it and say yes to it. Alison, is there anything else we should be doing, needing to be doing at this meeting? No. At which point, that is it. And thank you very much, everybody, for your attendance today.
Thank you very much.
And David, we didn't say hello to you when you arrived.